Chapter 3. The Book of Daniel. The prophet Daniel was a captive of Babylon who was being groomed for special service to King Nebuchadnezzar. In the second chapter of the Book of Daniel, we see there is a crisis in the kingdom. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream that troubles him, so he asks the wise men of the kingdom to interpret the dream for him. The wise men respond by saying basically, "Yes, your majesty, tell us the dream, and we will interpret it for you." But Nebuchadnezzar said, "No, you are the wise men and magicians. You tell me what I dreamed, and then interpret it for me." The wise men said, "This is an impossible task you're asking of us." So Nebuchadnezzar got angry and ordered all the wise men in the kingdom to be executed. And even though Daniel was an Israelite enslaved by Babylon, he was included in this list of wise men who were to be executed. And when he found it out, Daniel asked to speak to the king directly, because he could, in fact, tell him the dream and interpret it. Then Daniel prayed for understanding, and indeed, the next day, when he met with Nebuchadnezzar, he was able to tell him exactly what he dreamed and interpret it. Daniel said, "Your Majesty, in your dream, you saw standing before you a giant statue, bright and shiny and terrifying to look at. Its head was made of the finest gold. Its chest and arms were made of silver. Its waist and hips were bronze, and its legs were made of iron. And its feet were partly of iron and partly of clay. While you were looking at it, a great stone broke loose from a cliff without anyone touching it, and struck the iron and clay feet of the statue and shattered them. At once the iron and bronze and silver and gold crumbled and became like the dust on the threshing floor in summer. The wind carried it all away, leaving not a trace. But the stone grew to be a mountain that covered the whole earth." Nebuchadnezzar was, of course, in awe. This was exactly what he'd dreamed. And then Daniel continued, "This was the dream. Now I will tell you, Your Majesty, what it means. Your Majesty, you are the greatest of all kings. The God of heaven has made you an emperor and has given you power, might, and honor. He has made you the ruler of all the inhabitants of the earth and over all the animals and birds." And then Daniel continued, "Your Majesty, you are that head of gold." So Nebuchadnezzar and his kingdom, Babylon, was symbolized by the statue's head of gold in the dream. "You are that head of gold," Daniel continued. "After you, there will be another kingdom, not as great as yours, and after that a third kingdom of bronze, which will rule the whole earth. And then there will be a fourth kingdom, as strong as iron, which shatters and breaks everything. And just as iron shatters everything, it will shatter and crush all the earlier kingdoms. You also saw that the feet and the toes were partly clay and partly iron. This means that it will be a divided kingdom. It will have some of the strength of iron, because there was iron mixed with clay. The toes were partly iron and partly clay, showing that part of the kingdom will be strong and part of it weak." So the king's dream showed that 4 kingdoms would come upon the earth, beginning with Babylon and the king himself. "You are that head of gold." And after Babylon would be a second kingdom, and then a third kingdom. And then after these 3 kingdoms, a fourth and ruthless kingdom would come and destroy all the kingdoms before it. It will be a bit divided, partly strong and partly weak. And Daniel continued with the final part of the dream. "In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end, but it will itself endure forever. This is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut out of a mountain, but not by human hands. A rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. The dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy. Nebuchadnezzar stood in utter amazement. He said to Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods, and the Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery." Then the king gave Daniel many gifts, and made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon, and placed him in charge of all its wise men. Through the dream, Nebuchadnezzar learned of the kingdoms that would follow his. In history, we know these kingdoms to be Medo-Persia, the second kingdom, Greece, the third kingdom, and finally Rome, the fourth and very brutal and ruthless kingdom that crushes everything before it. But there is a very important part. Notice the verse that states, "In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to other people." That is exactly what happened. During the time of the Roman Empire, the fourth kingdom, Jesus was born. And he said, "Behold, the kingdom of God is at hand." That is when God's kingdom began. It was just the beginning. Of course, skeptics may say, "How do we know?" Because when Jesus was here on earth, he didn't crush the kingdom of the Roman Empire as the dream revealed. Instead, it was the Roman Empire who put Jesus to death. And this, it seems, is a good point. After Jesus' ascension into heaven, the Roman Empire continued for several centuries. But meanwhile, the kingdom of God was growing. And the time to crush the Roman Empire was still in the future. Our future. Now let's go further into the book of Daniel, into chapter 7. Daniel 7 is a very important chapter in the Bible, and is critical in understanding the book of Revelation. In chapter 7, Daniel had his own dream, and he wrote about it. Daniel wrote, "In my vision at night, I looked, and there before me were the four winds of heaven churning up the great sea. 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. The first beast looked like a lion, but had wings of an eagle. While I was watching, the wings were torn off the beast, and it was lifted up and made to stand up straight. And then a human mind was given to it. The second beast looked like a bear standing on its hind legs and holding 3 ribs between its teeth, and it was told, 'Get up and eat your fill of flesh.' Then another beast appeared. It looked like a leopard, but on its back there were 4 wings like the wings of a bird, and it had 4 heads. It was given the authority to rule. As I was watching, a 4th beast appeared. It was horrible and terrifying and powerful. With its huge iron teeth, it crushed and devoured its victim and then trampled on them. It was unlike any of the previous beasts. It had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, I saw a little horn come up among the others. It tore out 3 of the horns that were already there. This horn had human eyes and a mouth that was boasting proudly. As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. The other beasts had been stripped of their authority and were allowed to live for a period of time. Daniel continued, "During this vision in the night, I saw what looked like a son of man. He was coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, honor, and sovereign power. All the people of all nations and races and languages serve him. His authority will last forever, and his kingdom will never end." Daniel was confused by the dream. He saw 4 beasts come up out of the sea, the 4th one being dreadful and terrible, trampling down his victims and devouring them. He also saw what he said was the Ancient of Days, and one like the Son of Man being granted authority and sovereign power, so that all the peoples of earth would serve him. He was confused, so he asked for help interpreting the dream. In Daniel 7, verse 15, we read, "I, Daniel, was troubled in spirit, and the visions that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there and asked him the meaning of all this. So he told me, and gave me the interpretation of these things. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. But the holy people of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever. Yes, forever and ever." Then I wanted to know the meaning of the 4th beast, which was different from all the others, and most terrifying, with its iron teeth and bronze claws. The beast that crushed and devoured its victims, and trampled underfoot whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head, and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 of them fell. The horn that looked more imposing than the others, and that had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I watched, this horn was waging war against the holy people, and defeating them, until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the holy people of the Most High, and the time came when they possessed the kingdom. He gave me this explanation. The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the set times and the laws. The holy people will be delivered into his hands for a time, times and half a time. But the court will sit, and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, power, and greatness of all the kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will worship and obey him. We know from reading Daniel 2 that the 4th kingdom is Rome, because, as Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar, "You are that head of gold," referring to Babylon, after which 3 other kingdoms would follow in succession, which we know to be Medo-Persia, Greece, and then Rome. And then we read Daniel 7 and see that he is talking about the same 4 kingdoms, with the emphasis on the 4th beast. who both in chapter 2 and chapter 7 is different from the kingdoms before it. In Daniel 7, we see that the beast is ruthless, and that it tramples down and devours its enemies. In each book, Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, the fourth beast is ultimately destroyed by Jesus. Now we can go forward to the book of Revelation, chapter 13, and notice the beast that is shown to John and that he illustrates for us. We can easily compare it to the beasts in Daniel 7. It's the same beast.